Hi, I'm Jeremy, and today I'm going to show you a very simple card game by the name of Flash 10. And this is going to be a real-time version almost of the classic card game Racco, in which players are going to be racing to simultaneously arrange a row of cards in front of them from low to high. When a player accomplishes that, or when the cards that are available in the middle of the table run out, player will yell stop and the cards will be scored for the round. This will continue until somebody gets 50 points. This game, it plays ages 8 and up, and I suspect you could maybe go a little bit lower than that in about 20 minutes for 2 to 5 players. I'll take a minute to show you how it plays out, and then I'll come back and give you my thoughts on it. At the start of a game of Flash 10, each player is going to take 10 cards face down in front of them, and then the rest of the cards will be just shuffled into a random pile in the center of the table. When a player says go, each player is going to immediately begin turning their cards over one at a time until they have all cards revealed. And the object is going to be to take cards and place them within this row, so that left to right, your values go from low to high. So you'll notice that there are these cards here that have lightning bolts, and those will not interrupt the sequence. So for example, if I had here all of the cards accepted 81, lightning bolt 91, that would still be considered to be in sequence. However, every lightning bolt that you have at the end of the round will be -1 point, and if you have lightning bolts showing, you cannot call the end of the round. Also, cards that are divisible by 5, such as this 20 card, will have a lightning bolt in the corner. Those will be +1 point for every card like that showing on your display at the end of the round. So play is going to be real time, and simultaneously players are going to be drawing cards and placing them into their row. So that's going to work like this. So you just draw one card at a time, look at it, choose a place for it, and then continue. So maybe I'd put that there. This is a lightning bolt. It doesn't especially matter at this point. 23, maybe I'll put here. And this is just going to continue until somebody thinks that they have their sequence correct and they call stop to end the round. So obviously this is a lot more hectic with more than one player. The game does play from 2 to 5 players. So 2 things could trigger the end of the round. Either a player could call stop, or all the cards from the center could be drawn, and then at that point the round will automatically end and things would be scored. But let's just keep going here. And so now I have my sequence complete, but this lightning bolt is preventing me from calling stop. So right there, I would be able to call stop, and I would say stop. All players would stop adding to their rows. Now at this point, everybody will tally up their score. The person, first of all, you'll check the sequence of the player who called stop. If they're correct, they're going to get 1 point for each card, plus 2 points for calling stop, plus 1 point for each lightning bolt. So I get 10 plus 2 for the lightning bolts, plus a 2-point bonus for correctly calling stop. So I get 14 points. If I had, let's say, called stop like that, where this would be an invalid stop because of this thunderbolt, then I would get 0 points and all other players would score normally. Let's say that somebody else had called stop, and this is what I had. It would score so that you would look at left to right how many cards you have in sequence, and you'd score 1 point for each. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You won't score for this, but it doesn't interrupt your sequence. 7, 8, 9. So 9, plus I have 1 lightning bolt, 10, minus 1 point for a lightning bolt, back to 9. So let's say, however, I had, this is a bad example, let's say here I had this 92, and this is what I had at the end of the round. I would only score up until the card broke sequence. So I would score 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is lower, so I would stop scoring there, and I would still score for the lightning bolts and thunderbolts, and I have one of each, so those would cancel out. That'd be 5 points. Players are going to continue to tally up points until a player reaches 50 at the end of a round, and the player with the most points at that moment will be the winner. Okay, so that is Flash 10, and I think, as you can see, this is a really simple filler game that has a little bit of a dexterity element, a little bit of a speed element, and it has a very simple objective. Every player is going to just be racing for the same thing, grabbing cards as quickly as possible, and just trying to be the first one to complete their sequence. Because this game plays with from 2 to 5 players with the same number of cards in the center of the table, with each number of players, it will play differently depending on player counts. With a 2-player game, you could pretty much be sure that either you or your opponent will finish your sequence and end the round. So it tends to be more of a race just to grab cards as quickly as possible and start slotting them into spaces. But in a 5-player game, that's not guaranteed to happen. Often rounds will end with the center of the table being cleared out and players just scoring what they have left, with nobody getting that 2-point bonus for triggering the end of the round. So you almost have to think more about whether or not you want to press your luck and draw a card. Since you always have to place the card that you've drawn, you may end up having to place it in a suboptimal space, and then suddenly the round's over and you're stuck with a bad score in front of you. Again, this isn't necessarily a huge strategic consideration, but it does mean that the game round is more unpredictable with more players, and as such I would suggest playing this generally with 4 or 5 as opposed to 2 or 3, although it does play fine at those counts. It's just a different style of game almost. I think in general the game almost speaks for itself. It's very self-evident what you're trying to accomplish. There's that interesting scoring mechanism of those lightning bolts and thunderbolts, or thunderclouds, I suppose, that if you have positive points showing because of one of those cards, you don't generally want to cover it up, so you're going to try and avoid doing that when you're placing cards. So that's interesting. And those lightning bolts are interesting too, because although you can't yell stop, especially in a 5-player game, you often won't be the one yelling stop. So being able to extend your sequence by virtue of those is not the worst thing in the world. So they're not all bad. And there are, I think, 10 of those in the deck, or 20 of those in the deck, so you're going to have to deal with some of those on your turns, definitely. Overall, I think this is a fun game. It's nothing earth-shattering, but it's something that I think does what it sets out to do pretty well. And so yeah, those are my thoughts on Flash 10. Thanks for watching.